What's up, everybody? Welcome to another video. Now, it seems like we got quite a conundrum in our hands. One of the biggest YouTubers out there when it comes to journalism, his name is Tim Pool, and this guy is really popular. He's got one of the largest podcasts when it comes to journalism in America, and he's very factual. He's not somebody that makes his journalism biased like we see on television today, where Fox News, or on cable, on mainstream media, where we know Fox News is biased towards right winger, and we know CNN is biased towards left. Tim Pool is one of the most neutral people out there you could be listening to if you wanted to get information in terms of very neutral, opinionated information, factual as well. So Tim Pool went on onto Twitter, and Tim Pool said this, which was fact check actually. He said, "I don't think this even matters at this point. Time magazine just came out, said that a cabal of elites rigged the election." Now, this is some serious accusation. Now, he's not saying that he's claiming that there was a cabal of elites that actually rigged the election. He's saying this is what Time magazine said. He went on to say, "Oh, I'm sorry. They said they didn't rig the election. They fortified it by changing the rules and laws as well as manipulating the flow of information." This is the exact same thing that Trump was accused of, that Russians help him to manipulate and push out disinformation to the American people to cause them to vote for Trump. But this is the exact thing that he's saying Time magazine said that some elites and cabals actually put together to change the course of the election. But according to them, they were trying to fortify the election, not change the course of the election. So he has been censored on Twitter, and Twitter said the claim of this election fraud is disputed and that this tweet can't be replied to, retweeted or liked due to the risk of violence. Well, he didn't claim anything. He didn't actually say that the election was rigged. He didn't even say anything about election fraud. He said he merely mirrored what was said from Time magazine. Like, Time magazine literally blurred out everything. Now, he actually put the information in a tweet here. So I pulled it up so that I can actually give it a read so that we can find out whether he was the one lying or this is exactly what Time magazine said. Because if it is what Time magazine said, then this is them admitting that there was some sort of a collusion against Trump, which is exactly what they accused Trump of in 2016. So we are going to get into this particular article. It says the secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. We're going to get into this article. But before we do anything, I'd like to ask you guys to help me out by hitting that like button below. And also, while you are at it, please do consider subscribing if you are new, as I will massively appreciate it. Now, without further ado, let's get into this article, shall we? A weird thing happened right after November the 3rd. Nothing. The nation was braced for chaos. Liberals groups had vowed to take to the streets, planning hundreds of protests across the country. Right-wing militias were guarding for battle. In a poll before election day, 75% of Americans voiced their concern about violence. Have you seen what they wrote? Liberals were going to fight. People from the left were going to fight, while people from the right were saying, well, we are getting ready to protect ourselves. Basically, so we know who the violent side is, but I'm not trying to talk about sides here anyway. I just wanted to point that out. Instead, an area of quiet descended. As President Trump refused to concede, the response was not mass action, but crickets. When media organizations called for the race for Joe Biden on November 7th, jubilations broke out in the street as people thronged cities across the U.S. and celebrate the democratic process that resulted in Trump's ouster. So a lot of people went out and started celebrating, and all of a sudden, the COVID pandemic was disappeared. Matter of fact, we saw some articles that were saying some of the BLM protests were actually leading to the less spreading of the COVID pandemic, unlike how they reacted to many of Trump's controlled environment rallies, where people were wearing masks, tested, heat checked and everything. And they were saying that rally was a super spreader. But when it came to the BLM protest, they said that the BLM protests literally actually reduced the spread of the COVID pandemic. Seriously. But anyway, a second odd thing that happened amidst Trump's attempt to reverse the results, corporate America turned on him. Hundreds of major businesses, many of whom had backed Trump's candidacy and supported his policy, called out on him to concede. To the president, something felt amiss. It was very, very strange. Trump said on December the 2nd, within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint the winner, even while many key states were still being counted. Now, according to this article, he said, in a way, Trump was right. Like, this is one other time that Trump was right. And they were actually admitting to it that this guy is being anointed. This guy is already being called the president-elect, even though there were states still being counted. We're not even talking about certification here. So let's keep going. They said there was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes. Now, this is weird, as they are proudly saying there was a conspiracy. Conspiracies are something actually always linked to something bad happening to the behind the scene, right? So he said, one that both curtailed the protest and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Now, this is the weird key part. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. Well, they are actually talking about an open secret, because even as much as they try to hide this, a lot of us know that Trump wasn't only battling against the Democrats, he was battling against some Republicans, the mainstream media, and big tech corporation as well. So, the pact was formalized in a terse, little noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and AFL-CIO published on election day. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of an implicit bargain inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive racial justice protest, in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. You know why I'm laughing? Because they found a way to say sometimes destructive racial justice protests. We know what they're talking about, mostly peaceful protests. But anyhow, the handshake between the business and the labor was just one component of a vast cross-partisan campaign to protect the election, an extraordinary shadow effort dedicated not to winning the vote, but to ensure it would be free and fair, credible and uncorrupted. Seriously, if you have to orchestrate something within the shadows that is beyond the scope of the Constitution, then there's something shady going on. If you have to do it within the shadows and you're saying that you were not doing it against Trump, really, you want me to believe that? Right after you told me that it was a group of left-wingers and business people, left-wingers on their own and business people that orchestrated this. Of course, they would want it to swing towards the left, and that is Biden, by the way. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up America's institution as they came under simultaneous attack from a remorseless pandemic and an autocratical inclined president. So they've been planning this for over a year. And this is why when people were saying Trump was playing 4D chess, Trump was playing checkers while these guys were playing chess. Seriously, because there was a lot of mistakes that he made, but I won't be going into that now because we don't have time for it. Though much of these activities took place on the left, it was separate from the Biden's campaign and cross ideology lines. With crucial contributions by nonpartisan and conservative actors, this is them about to justify rigging the election. I'm sorry, I meant fortifying the election. Sorry, I didn't say rigging, I meant fortifying the election. YouTube is almost like God. I wonder why I looked up just now. So anyway, the scenario the shadow campaigners were desperate to stop was not a Trump victory. That's a lie. They were trying to stop a Trump victory. It was an election so calamitous that no result could be discerned at all. A failure of the central act of democratic self-governance that has been a hallmark of America since its foundings. In other words, they are saying that the constitution that America has laid in place that has been so successful since the time of the JFKs, the time of the Jimmy Carters, the time of the Bill Clintons, and even Obama's was not good enough this time around. Like the constitution that has worked way well so far was not good enough. So they had to take action, like on behalf of the American people. So we're going to do this for you, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not. We're going to decide for you whether you want this or if this is your will or not. So they worked to touch every aspect of the election. They got states to change voting systems and laws and helped secure hundreds of millions in public and private fundings. You see, this is exactly what Tim Pool was talking about. Tim Pool said, this is directly from the Time magazine itself. Tim Pool said their work touched every aspect of the election. They got states to change voting systems. Like, this wasn't legislation, this wasn't constitutional, but it changed it, and laws, and helped secure hundreds of millions in public and private fundings. Like, so how is this not actually manipulating the election, or changing the course of the election, or manipulating the will of the people? Well, we keep going. Defended of voter suppression lawsuits, recruited armies of poll workers, and got millions of people to vote by mail for the first time. Now, is this the right time to actually be testing vote by mail that has had some issues in the past? But anyway, they went about it. They successfully pressured social media companies to take a harder line against disinformation and use data-driven strategies to fight viral smears, just like they've done with something factual right now. We all know what they did with the Hunter Biden story. Anybody that touched it got censored, kicked off of a platform or the other. Even I refuse to talk about it because I know some people left me a comment on some of my videos. What do I think about the election, or what do I think about Hunter Biden? I actually totally ignored it on this channel because, look, I'm struggling to get people, and I'm struggling to get viewers to start with. I don't want them to shut me out entirely, right? So basically, I didn't touch it with a 15-foot pole, but we all saw what happened shortly after Biden was declared the president-elect. Information came out from one of the biggest left-wing mainstream media in CNN that Hunter Biden was being investigated by the FBI for some fraudulent activities conducted in, for some fraudulent activities probably conducted in Ukraine, and, some other IRS situation or issues or what have you. We started getting those information. But where were those information before the election? A poll actually came out to say that a lot of people who found out about this after the election said about 17% of people, but you can cross-check me or fact-check me on that one because I'm not too sure. But I remember them saying about 17% of people actually said they wouldn't have voted for Joe Biden if they had found out that there was an issue with Hunter Biden. But I'm going to pull that out. If I can find that information, I'll put it on the screen like I usually do. Anyhow, they executed national public awareness campaign that helped Americans understand how the vote count would unfold over days or weeks, preventing Trump's conspiracy theories and false claims of victory from getting more tractions. I think they were trying to prevent Trump from winning, seriously. But anyway, let's continue. After the election day, they monitored every pressure point to ensure that Trump could not overturn the result. The untold story of the election is the thousands of people of both parties who accomplished the triumph of American democracy at its very foundation, says Norm Eisen, a prominent lawyer and former Obama administrator official who recruited Republicans and Democrats to the board of the Voters Protection Program. So, the plot keeps getting thicker and thicker. So, like I said before, Trump was not only battling against Democrats, he was also battling against Republicans. For Trump and his allies were running their own campaign to spoil the election. I don't believe that much is true. I think Trump was running a normal campaign as a normal presidential candidate would. But they said that anyway. The president spent months insisting that mail ballots were a Democratic plot and the election would be rigged. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I always point out that Trump made. He shouldn't have said anything about the mail-in ballots being fraudulent. They played on that particular idea. What I think Trump should have said in the first instance would have been mail-in ballots should be okay, but we have to conduct that mail-in ballot in such a way that it is in the same format as absentee ballot, meaning that if you want to vote months before voting, you need to request for this mail-in ballot and then you fill it in and then they send it back. Not mass mail-in ballot being sent to everybody and then we wouldn't know if people who were voting were dead or have moved out of the state or were not even eligible to vote, right? So regardless of that, everything went on, and Trump didn't take really proper control. And what he was trying to do after the election had been called was what we in my own country would say medicine after death. So he said his henchmen at the state level sought to block their use, while his lawyers brought dozens of spurious suits to make it more difficult to vote, and intensification of the GOP's legacies of suppressive tactics. Now, I would agree with this part that GOP would do anything to grab power. It's all about the grabbing of power. GOP wants to grab the power. People from the right, the Republicans, of course, and the DOJ wants to grab power. So to those both parties, it's all about the power. It wasn't really about the American people. So I do agree with this part of I do agree with maybe this part of the statement. So yeah. Anyhow, the democracy campaigners watch with alarm. Every week, we felt like we were going to struggle to try to pull off this election without the country going through a real dangerous moment of unraveling, says former GOP representative Zach Wamp, a Trump supporter who helped coordinate a bipartisan election protection council. We can look back and say things went pretty well, but it was not all clear in September and October that was going to be the case. This is the inside story of a conspiracy to save 2020 election. See, they repeated it again. This is the inside story of the conspiracy to save the election. Based on access to the group's inner working, never before seen documents and interviews and dozens of those involved from across the political spectrum. So as you can see, they are clearly outrightly claiming that this was a conspiracy against a certain person. Regardless of how you want to put it, a conspiracy is not something that is a good thing. So in that sense, these people might actually be mirroring the same sentiments of
evil is necessary. Evil is necessary. Thereby, if it's necessary, evil must be good.
It's a story of unprecedented, creative, and determining whose campaign success to reveal how close the nation came to disaster. Every attempt to interfere the proper outcome of this election was defeated, says Ian Bison, co-founder of the Protect Democracy, a non-partisan rule of law advocacy group. But it's massively important for the country to understand that it didn't happen accidentally. The system didn't work magically. Democracy is not self-executing. These people have told you that they have actually manipulated the democratic system, that it just didn't magically happen. In other words, if things were truly free and fair, probably Biden wouldn't have won. They have told you exactly what they did. How is this different from what Tim Pool said on his tweet, where he was saying that, oh, I'm sorry, they didn't rig the election. They fortified it by changing the rules and the laws, as well as manipulating the flow of information. We can tell that these people actually carried out a lot of things to make this thing happen that were actually non-constitutional. Now, I don't know what you would say about this, but for me, I've got my own reservations about this whole thing. It is quite something of the same playbook of Reddington's Blacklist movie. And this is maybe in a way, maybe a little bit scary, but somehow, I don't know what sort of government you would want to call this kind of government, whereby they are thinking on behalf of the will of the people. Like, in other words, they don't think that people are smart enough to make decisions for themselves if you actually present them with every information that they need. So they swayed the information. And this seems to me like a collusion against a certain person. But anyway, that's what I think. You let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. So would you think that this is somewhat of a FA, but if you end it with a schist at the end, that's up to you, type of government? Or is this the kind of thing that the people need, that people actually need their decisions to be made for them, right? And also, do you think that Tim Pool should have been censored on Twitter for actually bringing out an information or pointing out an information that he saw from the Times magazine? This is one of the most reputable magazines in New York. So I think for the most part, we can't believe every single thing they said because we all saw it unraveling. And I think that this is them actually gloating that yes, they did it, and also trying to get on top of the situation. It's like when somebody cheats on their partner and they know that evidences are pointing towards them that the partner is going to find out regardless. So get on top of the situation and be the one to reveal to their partner that, hey, I cheated on you, but I did it for the good of you. Anyways, let me know what you think about this whole thing in the comment section below. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please do not forget to hit that like button below. And also while you're there, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, as that massively helps me out. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Remember to always think critically, look after yourself, and have fun this weekend.